So
Yes,
well, perfect.
absolutely. That's how I roll as well. So all good.
um, and I just want to like triple check it's Ciccotelli, correct?
Yeah, Ciccotelli. So think
Ciccotelli.
of chick a telly.
Ciccotelli. I love it.
Ciccotelli. I love it.
There we
Sounds so
go.
Italian.
It is lots of vowels.
I get it. My last name is technically Gentile, but everybody down here calls me Ashlyn Gentile.
Yeah.
Also, just to update you, Elena, Tashia
Yeah.
still is testing positive for COVID, so
Oh, poor
we'll
thing.
keep you updated when she finally tests negative. But
Yeah,
Okay.
she's really been through the ringer. I mean, she's been down for the count for almost
almost,
3 weeks.
mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh. Well, I hope she is on a way to recovery. I just had a client who was going through a similar situation, so it's nasty. I'm so sorry she's going
Yeah.
through that.
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
all
us
of her
too.
symptoms are gone, but
Yeah, but she's like still testing positive, which I know she's extremely frustrated about. She like
Uh,
did some research last night on like if I test positive, can I still infect other people? We were like, stay home, stay home.
like, oh, it's the worst. I don't know. Yeah. Well, I hope she feels better soon.
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Well, we'll
Thank
let her
you.
know.
I
Okay, all right. So I think
think we're ready to go whenever you are, Elena, and we're just gonna launch into
Ready?
it, and
Yeah.
then it'll just be like a normal conversation over Zoom.
Yes.
awesome.
I love it. No, that's exactly how I roll as well. So let's do it. I'm ready.
Awesome.
Awesome. Okay, so I think if it's cool, I'll kick this one off.
Perfect.
Cool. All right. Hey there, everyone, and welcome to our 8th episode of Startup Station, the only podcast that combines startups, sustainable mobility, and Chattanooga, Tennessee. I'm Ashlyn Gentile.
And I'm Angela Poffenbaugh. We are coming to you live from the company lab here in Chattanooga. And for our 8th episode, we have someone who we just have so much in common with.
Absolutely. She's in the podcast world, she's in the sustainable mobility world, and we are just so thrilled to have her. Please welcome the host of EVs for Everyone, Elena Ciccotelli. Elena, welcome.
Thank you, Ashlyn. Thank you, Angela. It is an absolute honor and privilege to be here. I'm so excited for this conversation today.
We're so excited to have you here.
Yeah. So, Elena, I want to start by talking about how your career began because you actually started out as a ballet dancer. So, tell us what that was like.
It was difficult.
I can imagine.
um, so, anyone who's ever trained as a professional athlete, I know can relate to this. It's not only the physical strength that you are training over a lifetime to acquire, but then it's also the mental strength as well that's needed to perform at this high level. So it's it's the competition, it's the mental strength, it's the physical strength, it's the if you don't feel like working, then there's five other people behind you that are ready to jump in and take your place, right? So an extremely, I guess, harsh and an extreme environment to kind of grow up in, but I really would not have traded that experience for anything because it has really taught me drive, discipline, determination, all of the things that actually help you in your career. So so it was one of those things where I decided early on I'm going to follow my passion. I'm going to New York City. I'm going to be a professional dancer. And then life happened, and I'm sure we'll get into it a little bit later. And ended up in the EV industry, which is has nothing to do with dance whatsoever.
Yeah.
So you were really at like the top of the top for ballet dancers. That is really impressive.
Yeah.
I was yeah, so I danced with the Pennsylvania Ballet. It's now called the Philadelphia Ballet. So yeah, I was there for a couple of years and ballet is no joke. Again, like any professional athletes or training to be a professional athlete will know it's an intense training.
Wow.
So let's talk a little bit about that transition. So, what led you from ballet, which is a wildly different industry than sustainable mobility or electric vehicles into the EV industry. Tell us a little bit about that journey.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a little weird and a little wild, if I'm being honest. And so from dancing, I really discovered I really wanted to help people and I really wanted to empower, especially women, to feel good about themselves. And this is kind of a thread that's also followed me throughout my career. And so I developed my personal training company. I bootstrapped it from zero. It was actually on a couple of news programs. I was the fitness aficionado on a lot of like local morning shows. I was noticed by an author who wrote a book about guerrilla marketing techniques. The book was called Me 2.0. And that kind of launched me into doing my first podcast, which was called Side Gig Central Podcast. And from there, I really focused on helping solopreneurs and entrepreneurs with their personal brand. So went on that wild ride. While I was doing that podcast, I was then approached by Lyft. This is where it kind of turns into mobility here. I was approached by Lyft back in 2017 to run their business development for the Philadelphia region. And that's how I started really getting very deep into automotive retail, helping develop relationships between technology vendors as well as the automotive retail side. And that was when I was first introduced to the EV ecosystem, became really, really fascinated with it. Fast forward 5 years from there, I was then recruited to join Teleperformance to run their automotive practice. And similar to at Lyft, really fostering relationships between automotive adjacent technology companies and also really large electric vehicle vendors, manufacturers. So from there, and all while I was at Teleperformance, and this was actually just a year ago, I then started the EVs for Everyone podcast because I was just felt like there was such a huge gap in the market for a show like EVs for Everyone, because everything that I could find was very academic and very technical and very boring. And so I thought, okay, I have all this industry experience. I also have experience with personal branding, bootstrapping, entrepreneurial spirit. What does that look like? And how do I put my own spin on it? So that's what weaved its way into mobility. And now I'm like full force using the podcast to talk to really amazing folks in the EV industry, automotive retail industry. So it's been an amazing ride, and it's still starting to develop, which is really exciting.
Your whole career path sounds like a great marketing plan, honestly.
It really does.
Coming from two marketers.
It really does. It really does. And I also love the title of your podcast, EVs for Everyone. We're still, dipping our toes into this space, and every day it's a learning experience. But one thing that I've really noticed is that, there's this massive push for EV adoption. However, I feel like so many members of different communities, specifically rural communities, may not feel like, EVs are for them. So to really break down all of your industry insights into clear, accessible language that's easy to understand is really outstanding.
Mm-hmm.
No, thank you, Ashlyn. And you're right. You're absolutely spot on. And, if you think about it, the electric vehicle came on the market as a luxury product, right? You think about Tesla. When it first came onto the scene, this is a luxury product. This is a product that this is your second, third, fourth vehicle in the driveway. It's certainly not your only vehicle in the driveway, right? So Ashlyn, I am so passionate about this topic, and we can get into it a little bit later on, and how I see the future unfolding in this EV economy, and how we can truly get and push for more EV adoption, more mainstream EV adoption, and not just reserved for that luxury product for the affluent.
And you're pushing to do that in more ways than just by hosting this podcast that really breaks down that formidable language, but you do a few other different things in the EV industry, Elena. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And Angela, I'm going to comment on just one thing you had said about the accessible language. So I was just at Move America 2 weeks ago, and I was moderating a panel, and one of the panelists they were just rattling off all of these acronyms. And then
Yeah.
I jokingly just said, as I was moderating, I said, well, we really need to get an EV acronym dictionary because I'm a little bit lost. Like, can we break down these acronyms? And then so somebody in the audience, as was taking notes, they wrote a LinkedIn post, I don't know, 20 minutes later and said, and tagged me in it and said, here you go, Elena Ciccotelli, here's the EV acronym dictionary that you were looking for. I was like, wow, this was me. Talk about collaboration. So anyway, so and also too, that's why I really love the automotive industry because it is such a people first, let's get our hands dirty and solve some problems. So shout out to the automotive industry. But back to your back to your original question. So yes, I'm going full force into the EVs for Everyone podcast. I think I've really only barely scratched the surface of what the show can really be and what we can really do with the show. So I'm really, really excited to just press on the accelerator, not the gas, press on the accelerator and keep moving forward. And the other piece of it is I'm very, very involved in industry conferences. I just had mentioned Move America, but now I'm doing more on location recordings of the show. I'm actually doing it next week at Autotech Electrification in Detroit. I'll be doing at Used Car Week in Scottsdale and Customer Alpha in San Francisco. So there's a lot of these, again, meeting of the minds, but then how do we bring this information and this knowledge to the masses and kind of peel the curtain a little bit? It gets a little bit like Wizard of Ozzy, like it gets very like there's a black box and we kind of talk about it, but not really. So this is a really exciting opportunity to talk to the people with the boots on the ground. These are the problems that they're solving. These are the collaborations. These are the partnerships that are starting to form, which really excites me. So all about more content, more speaking engagements, more talking to industry experts, and just I'm so excited to be a part of it.
Yeah, I feel like you're really operating on that give first mentality,
Mm-hmm.
which means like saying yes to more speaking engagements, saying yes to more interviews, saying yes to more networking opportunities.
Yeah, and I love too how you are normalizing how intimidating the EV language can be sometimes because you have so much industry experience, and it's easy for someone who's a bit of a newbie to the EV world to walk in and be, this is too much, I'm walking away. But you have literally moderated at conferences and you have your own podcast, and you're so vulnerable with saying that you're still learning.
Yeah, and I think also too when you say I know everything, then that's where there should be a huge red flag and that's the danger zone because this technology is advancing so quickly and so rapidly and even people that have been in the industry for 10, 12, 13 years are still saying I still need to be curious, I still need to learn because we're not there yet. We are not to the goals that we say that we're going to achieve by 2030. So, huge advocate of constantly learning, constantly staying curious because this similar to any other we talk about the rise of AI, that's another episode, constantly moving, constantly learning.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of learning, I feel like we have a lot to learn from you right here and right now. I would really love to learn about your insights into the EV landscape. So, where do you see the electric vehicle industry going? Where do you? Well, let me rephrase.
Yeah.
What are your insights into the current landscape, and where do you see it going in the future?
Yeah, Ashlyn, this is a great question. It's a huge question. So I'm going to do my best to kind of break it down into a couple of different problems I see and then offer a solution. So this is really, this is everything around an EV economy is unprecedented. You've got two gigantic legacy old school industries, automotive and utilities, and they're now having to work together. Okay? And so everything from developing the proper charging infrastructure that needs to happen, to addressing range anxiety, to addressing the affordability of electric vehicles. There are a lot of complex problems that need to be solved with a variety of stakeholders. We're not just talking about a couple people in the private sector. We're talking about private sector, public sector. Everybody's got to reach across the aisle and do a handshake. So that's why there's so much friction, right? So I think we can all agree that the road to net zero targets, the road to electrification has been quite bumpy. And, and that's what I see at the macro level. But if we can narrow it down to similar to what we touched on briefly, Ashlyn, in the beginning, when we had said about, look, we need to really make this EVs for everyone, EVs accessible and not just for the affluent. So first, I just want to address the elephant in the room, which is cars are too expensive. They are
Agreed.
so
Yeah.
expensive. Like, can we just be for real right now and just
Honestly.
say, honestly, like they are new cars are really expensive. Interest rates are crazy, crazy high. And now we're seeing, new car purchases just across the board are now being reserved for the affluent. And so that mainstream, that middle class buyer is now priced out of the market, right?
100%.
And so now EVs, which are on average 20% more expensive than ICE vehicles, internal combustion engine vehicles, got the
Yes.
acronym there, ICE, okay. So EVs are 20% more expensive than ICE vehicles, right? So, unless we see this huge, drop in interest rates, I don't really foresee that happen. I get my crystal ball real quick and let me just double check. No, I don't foresee that. But there's going to be 100 new EV models coming in the next 30 months. They're 20% more expensive. So how is the industry? How are the manufacturers? How are the dealers, right? The dealers that are selling these vehicles, how are they going to absorb all of these new models that are going to be coming onto the market? Because once you press play, once you hit go on the manufacturing, you can't pull it back. You can't just say, oh wait, just kidding. No, these things are allocated years in advance, right? So I said I would offer a solution, and here is where I put my crystal ball in front of me and say this is a potential, is a good viable solution. And I really think that the micro lease, the subscription, the long-term rental, whatever you want to call it, there's a lot of different names for it, is really a great turnkey, convenient way for somebody to get into an electric vehicle without having all of the credit that's needed, without having all of the down payment that's needed, without really all of the hassle of the traditional car buying nightmare that tends to happen when most people would like to go to the dentist rather than buying a vehicle. So I really feel that micro lease, that subscription, and I've interviewed many companies on the podcast that are offering this now for electric vehicles, and also broadening it out to staffing companies, and really getting really the mainstream folks involved and getting excited about getting into an electric vehicle. Because with all of these other environmental factors that are happening right now, it's going to be a long arduous journey, right? Because it's the Tesla buyers are going to be Tesla buyers, but then what about the person who drives a Toyota Camry and is a little bit scared to try an EV? This is like a low risk kind of easy way to say, oh, you know what? It fits my lifestyle. I've tried it out, and I really enjoy this experience. And yes, it is easier than owning an ICE vehicle. So that's just one little tiny compartment of where I see we can categorize it as retail on the EV
Mhm.
side. But then there's also other huge categories like charging infrastructure,
The
EV
grid.
education, right? So that's two more episodes right there for you. So
Truly, truly. I'm really glad that you brought up this topic because I feel, the race to carbon neutrality is a global endeavor. We all know that. And so many of these major car companies, like, the big three, Ford, GM, Stellantis, they've all said that the majority of their inventory is going electric by, I don't know, 2030, 2035. They've wrapped some, arbitrary date around that. But in order for that to be successful, people need to buy the EVs.
Yeah,
And with the way that things are, because, there is that accessibility problem, it is a real challenge. And I also feel like it goes deeper than that. I'm sure that you are all over this, but the United Auto Workers, they're currently on strike.
hmm
And it
yes,
goes deeper than just the commercialization side. I feel like there needs to be some amount of workforce optimization, because there is, that a lot of, I think Ford is partnered with a couple of like third party manufacturers, but there is this pay and benefit discrepancy. So in order for these things to happen, the workforce needs to be motivated and needs to feel that their anxieties are being addressed as well.
absolutely. And I'm glad that you brought up the UAW. The other side of what's going on with the UAW is electric vehicle technician shortage. And
Mm.
Mm.
this is also contributing to the anxiety of, do I go electric, or do I just stay with my Toyota Camry? And so when you have again, this goes to what is the dealership's purpose? The dealership should be a value add. Is another thing that I'm very passionate about. It should be a value add. It should be something that enhances your overall experience of owning, leasing a vehicle. And so and again, this is an industry problem that it is being worked on, but some folks are looking at it like, hey, if I have an issue with my electric vehicle, which by the way, there tends to be less issues, right? There's less parts, less chance of things going wrong. But if there is an issue, who's going to fix it? So
Mhm.
so again, to your point about the labor and again, very complex, multi-layered issues that we're just as an industry are having to work through right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it's all about getting people outside of that niche audience to be interested in EVs enough to where they have a call to action and they really want to hop on that and actually invest in owning an EV. So, going off of that, Elena, if someone's listening right now, they don't have an EV, they don't know a lot about it, what would kind of be your elevator pitch or piece of advice for them if they wanted to consider delving into the EV world?
Yeah, I would, you know what? First and foremost, I would try and cut out a lot of the noise. There's a lot of noise around just myths that are just simply not true. I've heard some
Mm-hmm.
crazy myths in just my time as hosting the podcast. And
What's one of them?
one of them was, if I charge my vehicle in the rain, am I going to get electrocuted? Or if I there was another one too, and it's similar to, if I drive my electric vehicle in the rain, am I going to get electrocuted? So there's like a whole electrocution theme that was happening. But again, you have to remember too, there was some like really bad press that happened early on with EVs. Like there was a couple of instances of a EV blowing up and like burning down somebody's house, which was like a 1 in a gazillion chance. But of course, that's like the one nugget of information people take away and say, see, EVs are risky. So I would, again, to your original question, I would be really conscious of the media that I'm consuming around the electric vehicle sphere. So going to reputable news sources, I mean, shout out to some of my really favorite automotive publications. You've got Automotive Remarketing, you've got Automotive Fleet, you've got Ward's Auto, you've got Automotive News. So there are a ton of places to go for that concrete information. So the facts that are being reported on. And then, you know what, like as another, I'll take the question in a little bit of a different direction. If you're thinking about delving into the EV industry in terms of a career choice, in that vein, I would say, yes, do it. It's really exciting. We need more problem solvers. And the piece that I would be really excited to talk about would be, look, you can start to use your skills and your expertise in a way that's going to solve these really big problems. And if you're a little bit introverted, sorry, you're going to need to network, because it's a whole relationship building business. It is meeting people face to face, talking about their story, what's important to them. So if you're a little bit introverted, you're going to have to just step outside your comfort zone just a smidgeny bit. But the EV, obviously, I'm all in on electrification, all in on making it a topic that is accessible and not just reserved for a few industry folks that like to throw around a lot of acronyms and jargon.
One of my rules of thumb when it comes to doing anything branding or marketing related is no insider language. So I'm glad that you are a beacon of hope for what that looks like in the EV industry. Thank you.
Oh no, thank you. And it's and to your point, like this show is a great example of being able to talk about these issues in a really great forum. So thank you guys.
Yeah, no, we're so glad to have you here, especially just to, again, just kind of get rid of that fear that is not backed up by facts. I think that's the big thing. If you're just pulling from air, people are going to latch onto it, but it comes from nothing. It stems from nothing. So I'm glad that you're here to really establish that this industry really is something that you're going to want to be a part of, because it's evolving so quickly, like you said.
It is. And I think also too, and this is one thing I didn't mention, the people involved in the EV economy, electrification space are amazing. You really sit down, you really listen to their story and why they're passionate about this. I have met such amazing, talented, just great people, and which is another reason why I love doing a podcast. I'm sure you guys can agree. It's like the best. It's the best, and I'm really excited to be a part of the conversation and to just help people understand that it's not this cryptic thing that only a couple people get to understand. It should be for everyone. And you think about when the horse and buggy was the primary mode of transportation, and then you see the transition to the Ford Model T. It's like we're in that like growing pains, transitioning from that horse and buggy to that Model T, from that ICE vehicle to that EV vehicle, and it's growing pains. I don't know. I mean, I don't have kids or anything, but if I had a teenager, we're in the teenager phase right now. They're gonna slam the door and, oh, you don't understand me, and
Definitely. Honestly, what a time to be alive. It's really
Yeah.
wild being, somewhat being adjacent to this industry, but also living through it and being able to see all of these innovations happen, see all of these problems arise, but also see the innovation that comes out of it.
Mhm.
So, speaking of innovation, what can we look forward to from your end down the road?
oh my goodness, lots of good stuff. I'm really excited to work on a live version of the EVs for Everyone podcast. I'm going to be working on a live show, doing it on YouTube. So TBD on when that's going to start. Looking for guests, looking for co-hosts, and just really excited to get that off the ground and launched. I'm also doing podcast strategy coaching. I've actually opened up an exclusive program using all of my knowledge of podcasting and branding, not necessarily for the automotive industry. So this is completely separate, and everything from coming up with the strategy, how to launch, sustain that hype so it's not just like this one episode and then it crickets and dies. So, how to build that longevity and excitement around it. And then, on a completely separate, very, very, very separate tangent, I'm working on publishing my first kids book. And
Wow.
yeah,
No way.
so I have a goofy golden doodle. His name is Bear. So the book is all about Bear. And so if you
I
have
love
anybody listening that has like first and second graders running around, uh,
it.
Bear is going to be having a book very soon. So again, has nothing to do with electrification, but has always been a passion of mine, and have always wanted to publish a kids book. So that's coming up too. So lots of exciting projects.
That's so exciting. Congratulations.
Yeah, congratulations. You are like the content queen. You got a book, a live podcast, a podcast coaching session.
Yeah.
Wow.
Unbelievable.
Well, Elena, if people want to follow you and stay updated on all of these exciting things that are going to happen, where can they go?
Yeah, no, and thank you guys once again for having me on. I love this conversation. I love what you're doing on Startup Station and getting entrepreneurs the information and tools that they need. As an entrepreneur myself, your talents are sorely needed. So thank you, thank you, thank you. If you want to follow along on my journey, best way to do that is you can follow me on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn a lot these days. Just search my name, Elena Ciccotelli. If you want to listen to the podcast, check out what's going on there. Go to EVs, the number 4, everyone.com. And that is also on all major podcasting platforms. And then for podcast strategy coaching, maybe you guys can throw that link in the show notes, and happy to chat
We
about that.
absolutely
Yeah,
will.
definitely. Yeah, everyone check out the show notes, especially if you're an aspiring, is it podcaster? Podcaster?
Podcaster.
Podcaster, yeah.
Podcaster?
Probably podcaster. Yeah. Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you so much, Elena. This was awesome.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here. You're a very big inspiration for a lot of people with
So
everything you've done. So thank you.
no, I thank you for your time. You guys are great, and I love what you're doing. So thank you. Keep on going. I love it.
We will. We will, just for you.
Yes.
Awesome. Okay.
Amazing. Awesome.
Great.
Was that
Elena,
okay? Was it good?
oh my
No,
gosh,
that was amazing.
amazing.
That was amazing. That was by far one of the best interviews we've ever had.
Oh,
Yes.
no,
100%.
stop it.
Yeah,
Yes.
no, full transparency. It definitely
Yes.
was.
You are a very good speaker. Very
Oh,
good.
no, thank you. I think about what the audience wants to hear, right? I
Yep.
think about
Uh-huh.
how you gotta keep it moving. Your questions were awesome. I loved your questions, and really made me think what
Yeah.
the answer would be. So I love it. Yeah. Is there anything else you guys need from me?
Not that I can think of. I saw you sent us your headshot and everything, so thank you so much for that.
Sure.
Yeah, I really want to look into this podcast strategy workshop.
Yeah, I mean, I am very excited to launch. This has been like a dream of mine for a very long time. So I now have the time to do it. And I'm super excited to start getting into that realm because I this is gonna sound super corny and cheesy, but just podcasting has changed my life. It has absolutely changed my life, and I just want that for all other podcasters. I'm like, there is so much power in your voice, and
Yeah.
I love it. So anyway,
Yeah, you already have that experience with personal branding and marketing. I mean,
Mhm.
and that alone can just be a wealth of knowledge for your audience. But combining that with podcasting is so cool.
oh, thank you. No, and again, I cannot overstate. Like, I love what you guys are doing, and keep me updated
Yeah,
on what's going on with collab.
yeah,
Mhm.
we will.
And
We
I think this might be a question for Tazia.
mhm.
But I know, like, heading into the new year, if there's a need for any consulting around electric vehicles, happy to chat through that with her.
Yeah,
But I
Yeah.
just don't know what the need is, right? I know you guys are like really getting into the space now. And I think it's a newer initiative for you. So anyway,
well,
separate.
I can speak for Tashia in that we are actively looking for mentors for our accelerator program, which launches in January.
Mhm.
So if that is something that you would be willing to commit to, I can draft up an email,
Yeah.
and all we would really need is, well, we already have your headshot,
Yeah.
but we would just, I think it's really just a couple hours a week. I would have to confirm with our managing director for the program. But I know that you would not only be able to bring insights into what the EV market is like at present, but you can also bring insights into personal branding and marketing, because those are, some business specific areas of expertise that we could definitely use mentorship in.
Definitely.
Yeah, I would love to know the details around that. I actually
Great.
did a mentorship program for it's called Venture Cafe in Philadelphia. So it's not an incubator, but it is a place for entrepreneurs, first time entrepreneurs. I did a whole session about branding, personal branding, and sales. So
Awesome.
yeah, happy